Hello, prosta, niente. Hey, this is Mr. Chan. Um, I'm here to talk to you about risks. So, what is a risk when it comes to your assessment? Well, it's something that can affect the success of your project. So, something that will get in the way of you finishing your project. Um, so, we're going to talk about five of them. These are five risks that we're going to talk about. And what you're going to do is you're going to choose four of them, and then you're going to talk about why there would be risks to your project, and then you're going to talk about how you would make sure it doesn't stop you from finishing your project. So the first two, um, if you look at your template that you're going to fill out, the first two, you'll name what the risk is and why it is a risk to your project um, in the first thing here. And then the second one, risk mitigation, is talking about how you would make sure it doesn't stop you from finishing your project. Okay. The first one I'm going to talk about is time. We've all kind of been involved in you have projects and you overestimate yourself. You think that you have more time than you actually do, and then you end up it's at the end of the year and you're kind of like, oh man, I don't have enough time to finish this project. Where did all the time go? So this is an example of a risk. Like what can you do to make sure that you keep track of time? And what can you do to make sure um, that basically that time doesn't get the best of you, you know? Um, Incorrect functionality. So functionality is basically will my project actually be a solution to the problem I came up with in my proposal? So like for example, um, if my problem was vaping, vaping being having negative effects on people, well, making a poster actually convince people not to vape. Like, if I actually put a poster up in the hallway in Margaret College, are people that are walking by actually going to read it? Is it actually going to do the thing I want it to do, which is convince people not to vape at all? Maybe it won't. So if it doesn't, then you have incorrect functionality. Your project doesn't actually do what you wanted it to do. So how are you going to make sure that your project is actually a solution to your problem? Um, and just to clarify, your problem is basically the thing that you came up with here. The problem. What is the problem? What problem, issue, opportunity you're trying to solve right there. So refer back to your proposal if you don't remember what your problem is, and your solution is also should also be here. It's just generally like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it? All these things here. Um, so yeah, that's done. Estimations and scheduling. So when you're working on your Trello, you came up with all these tasks you were gonna do. How do you what are you gonna do if it ends up that some like the scheduling isn't working? Like what if there's too much time for one task, there's too little time for another? How are you going to make sure that your schedule is actually realistic? And if it doesn't match up, if it doesn't match up and your schedule um, doesn't actually work, how are you gonna fix it? How are you gonna make sure that your planning works? Because ultimately, you're gonna need to show evidence that you planned your project, and your planning is done through Trello. So, um, scope creep. Uh, have you ever gone to the supermarket with your brother or sister or whatever, your family, and you've got like a shopping list. You wrote a shopping list down, but when you go to the supermarket, there's a whole bunch of things in front of you that you wanted that you didn't know you want, like ice cream or whatever, or soda or whatever, and you're taking in all these things that you want that you forgot that you wanted, and then you go to the cashier and it turns out that you have like 50 more items than you thought you would have. That's an example of scope creep. It's when you don't think of everything you need before you start something, and so you end up with more to do than you expected. When in terms of your project, scope creep is basically like um, you don't do your requirements properly, and it turns out that there's more things that you actually needed to do than you thought. So when you refer back to your project proposal, this is your requirements. What if your requirements are not full and you don't actually know all the things you need in order to complete your project, then you're gonna need way more time than you thought, and yeah, it will cause problems for you because you might not end up having enough time. So how are you gonna make sure that scope creep is not a problem for your project? And last of all, anything that's outside of your control. Um, what here's just some examples of um, anything that's outside your control. What if your project is deleted accidentally? What if you can't get access to one of the resources you needed? And what if it's no longer possible for you to make a video? For instance, like what if you can't get access to one of the resources you need? What if the program you need to use is not there, or the camera is not as available as you needed it to be? Like what if you can only use it once every 2 weeks and you needed it every week? What if it's no longer possible to make a video? You don't have enough time anymore. What are you going to do about that? Can you change to a different project? Like maybe you can make a poster instead. Make sure that you are aware. Basically, that's what risks are. Make sure that you're aware of all the things that can happen that are bad, and make sure that you have a solution to all those problems. Like you have an idea of what you would do in those situations. So thanks for listening, guys. That's risks. And also, remember that you got to post this in Google Classroom. So you got to fill this out and put it on Google Classroom. Okay, thanks.